Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. Everyone loves a good draft, especially when you're just trying to count down the days until the college football season. So here's what we're going to do. Three of us, we've all put together our big boards for Heisman Trophy candidates. We're going to be doing a draft. Danny's got the first pick. This will be a 4-round snake draft. And at the end of the season, we'll look back. We see who had the winner. Hopefully one of us had the winner. Gracious. And then maybe who's got the most finalists for some bonus points along the way. So Danny Kanell, you've got pick 1-1. You are first on the clock. Every player in college football is available to you. Who is your first pick in the Heisman Trophy draft?
The only thing I would disagree with you, Chip, I hope we don't get it. Like, I love a season when there's surprise players. Joe Burrow, 2019, I don't think any of us probably would have taken him even as a flyer out of LSU. So, all right. So, first pick, I had this, and I was fired up because I had the whole pick of the lay of the land, and I have a strategy with what I want. So, I want somebody that I've already seen do it. I don't want to go on potential and hope that they're good. I also want somebody that is going to be in New York, is going to be on a winning team, has already laid it down. You don't have a receiver taking away picks from them or, votes for them. You don't have a running back room or a running back taking away votes from them. Give me Cade Klubnik, quarterback out of Clemson, for my number one option, my number one selection. Clemson is the only Power 4 team that is heavily favored to win their conference where they are in the ACC. So I feel like they're almost a guarantee to be in that playoff discussion the majority of the season, even if they did happen to lose to that LSU game week 1. And I think he's the biggest lock to at least get to New York City. So I'm going to have somebody that's in that conversation. 36 touchdown passes last year, was third in the country last season. I think he could even improve on that. I love Cade Klubnik this year. I love Clemson's chances to win the ACC. As long as he's healthy, I think he's a virtual lock to be in New York City.
Before we get to Bud's pick here at number 2, there's obviously like a superstar that is at the top of the odds board. I'm not going to try to, influence Bud's pick in any way, but you talk about having, getting to see it. Do you think that Cade Klubnik really does have another level? Because I would say that by the end of last year, he was your top, best quarterback in the ACC, good, but best player in the entire country. Do you see in his progression there being another step for him there?
I thought his last couple games in the ACC championship game and the playoff game against Texas, he was playing as good as anybody in the country last year. The problem was people wrote him off so much, especially me, after the game against Georgia, which is a disaster. Like, I wondered if he would even last the year starting, but he slowly built up his confidence all year long. I don't even know if he has to take another level up. He just has to play the way he did those last couple games and the way he's played at his best. And a lot of those were stat padding games when he's playing against lesser competition, which was a concern going into the playoffs and was a concern in the ACC title game. But if I get that version, then I think it's his award to lose. That's the one unknown for me, is can he maintain that level against the best competition for an entire season? Because when you're a favorite like he is, he's only second in the odds. You don't have you have that bad game, especially if you have it late, you're done. That's the one advantage I think I have as well. His toughest game is against LSU. It's early. He can rebound like that, just like he did against Georgia. But I think he plays better, much better at home against LSU than he played, against Georgia and Atlanta. So I feel really confident about him being in this conversation all season long.
Listen, we're not trying to throw like side swipes to LSU, but LSU's defense in your house is different than Georgia's defense in Atlanta. So yeah, I do like his odds there. All right, Bud, second pick. You got to see the odds board right there. Anybody available except for Cade Klubnik? Where are you going?
Yeah, so I don't totally disagree with Danny as far as I want a guy who's done it before. Part of the reason why you might want that is because you want the voter base to know about who the guy is. My pick, though, I don't think anybody has any mystery about who this guy is. I'm going Arch Manning, quarterback of the Texas Longhorns. First year as a starter. Last year, backed up Quinn Ewers. Yes, I said Manning. This is a media voted upon award. I think if he is good enough to get an invite to New York, I think the celebrity and all the hype around him will be good enough to push him over the top. And I think this guy is very athletic. We've seen him do like crazy windmill dunks. Obviously, Texas is all in on this kid. They tried to rebuild the receiver core with a little bit of in-house and a little bit of transfer stuff as well. We'll see how the offensive line holds up. And unlike Klubnik, like there's some chance Klubnik plays 0 ranked teams down the stretch and doesn't get a lot of real chances, to show off. Now he'll be on the highlight package and stuff, but how many people are actually watching those Clemson games down the stretch? I think Arch Manning is going to be watched TV every single week. And if he plays well at all, I think he's got a great chance at this.
This is his 3rd year in the program. They've had a lot of staff continuity right there. New for a lot of fans to see him as a regular starter, but he's certainly been building towards it. Okay, so we've got Cade Klubnik.
Can I say real quick, Chip? Real quick,
100%.
If he has, let's say they lose against Ohio State and his value, because I also was trying to get a little bit of value. You're not going to get much when you take a Heisman favorite, but he is the Heisman favorite at plus 700. Cade Klubnik gives you a little bit more value at plus 900. And with both of these guys, I would actually say the same about Cade. But if Arch Manning struggles, the reaction is going to be so much like, oh, he's overrated, he's done. Then if his value dropped some to, let's say, plus 1,800 or plus 2,500 because they lose that game and he struggles, that would be the time I think you might want to snatch up some Arch Manning Heisman stock, because their schedule, much like last year, is not that unbearable. Like, he could bounce back just like Cade Klubnik did last year, and then you get the improvement, you get the better value, and I think that would be the time to take him, because I would not touch him no matter what the scenario was at plus 700. It's just not very good value for a Heisman.
So would you rather bet Texas in week 1 or Arch Manning Heisman in week 1?
Ooh.
Texas.
Because if he wins it, those odds are going to go to
he's going to be right in the
+150.
driver's seat then. Yeah, you're not getting better value from that point.
I mean, but that's also my thoughts on Texas. Danny, my heart just jumped because that sounds like day trading Danny. Anybody who loves the Cover 3 podcast knows that was some great day trading Danny analysis, being able to find the right spots to buy a blue chip stock like Arch Manning for Heisman. Okay, this one draft has landed to me. The 2 big dogs are off the board. So I'm going to go with talent. I'm going to go with talent that showed some flaws, but they are flaws that I do think can be corrected. So here at the end of the first round, I'm going to go with Garrett Nussmeier. The LSU quarterback has arm talent that has been so obvious that the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels, had to beat Nuss out when they were both in Baton Rouge at the same time. And during that competition, we heard a lot of little whispers like, man, Nuss is really pushing him. Nuss is really pushing him. Obviously, Daniels' playmaking ability was then shown for the Tigers as he did go on to win the Heisman Trophy. But for Nussmeier, the flaws that I'm looking at are turnovers. The flaws are decision-making. The flaws are, I think, something that can be corrected in a way where he's able to shore this thing up. So with seeing Cade go, with seeing Arch go, the next name on my big board is a player who I don't think needs to win the national championship or have the best team in the country to win the Heisman Trophy, because just like Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy without having the best team, even in the SEC, I think there's a path where Garrett Nussmeier's production in this LSU offense can set him up to be able to be successful and be able to have one of those profiles that is so gaudy that Heisman voters are just going to end up jumping at it. So I'll go Nuss here at the end of round 1. Okay, you want me to kickstart round 2 or any thoughts on Nuss?
Real quick on Nuss. I agree. I think it's a great pick. I totally agree with you. He's got, and I think he was one of those examples of such high expectations because he waited so long that the bar was like perfection. And he did have the rough stretch, the 3 games that they lost. He had a couple interceptions against A&M that really cost him the game. I think he's going to get better and make much better decisions now that he's been at a year. He's faced an entire schedule. I do expect him to take a big step forward. And if he does, to your point, Chip, I think it's a great pick.
I think receivers are way better for Nuss this year. I'm a little bit concerned the offensive line takes potentially a major step back, especially losing 2 tackles to the NFL. But, I mean, I had a lot of Nuss for Heisman last year at some pretty crazy odds. I was going to take him if you passed on him, Chip, but I wasn't going to take him over Arch.
All right, so now we've started. We are snaking this thing around. Round 2, pick 1. It's going to be mine, and it is going to be Ohio State wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. Let's go. Okay, now here's my question to you guys. Bud, I'll let you take it first. Is this too high for a non-quarterback? Because we just had a non-quarterback win in Travis Hunter and a non-quarterback be the runner-up in Ashton Genty. I mean, are Heisman voters going to be so drawn to the light like a moth to get back into the quarterbacks? Or does JJ have a real chance to be able to be the Heisman winner and hear his true sophomore season?
Yeah, Chip, when I got the second pick in this, I'm not going to lie, I was like, is there some chance I get Arch and JJ? And you just crushed those dreams, man. Yeah, this is a great pick by you. I think this is like if he really got out of the top four, we're doing something wrong as a podcast. JJ is like the best player in college football, maybe by a lot. He should be in the NFL right now. The only reason he's not is because, like, former Buckeye Maurice Clarett sued and lost his appeal to be able to get in the NFL before finishing 3 years out of high school. He's just a freak. Nobody can really cover him. We asked Ryan Day, and he kind of just chuckled like, yeah, I don't know how you cover this guy. Nobody in the Big Ten seems to have real answers for him. Nobody in the country does. He's the best player in the sport. Will he have the numbers to back it up? I don't know. But, like, if you guys think there's somebody a better college ball player than Jeremiah, I'd love to hear about it.
All right, round 2, pick 2, number 5 overall. That's to you, Mr. Elliott Esquire. Who are we going with?
We are diamond hands on this. I am a little bit concerned about this boot update, but we're not putting a boot on Lagway's Heisman campaign. Give me DJ Lagway from Florida. I do think, if healthy, he might be the best quarterback in the sport. Florida's going to have a ton of opportunities to showcase Lagway. If he's healthy, I mean, he's a guy, like, if Florida goes 9-3, it basically like he's dragging them to a potential playoff spot at 9-3. He's going to be on like major national television every single week. If he can stay healthy, I think he'll have really good numbers. Florida's offensive line is very improved. I like some of the young receivers. Obviously, as we talked about in the open, he actually has to mess with them, which would require him to like practice some and actually practice with those guys. But I like the upside here. I'm not trying to draft somebody just to get in New York. I'm trying to draft somebody who can actually win this thing. And I think if Lagway stays fully healthy, he is capable of actually winning the award.
Yeah, Lagway talent is there. Can he stay healthy? Big questions. All right, DK, round out round 2. Pick number 6 overall, number 3 of the round. Where are we going for your next selection in the Heisman Trophy draft?
So I went a little bit more of the safety valves, right? The guys that I feel like I've already seen what I know what I'm going to get with Cade Klubnik's scenario. I think he played really well. I think if he maintains that, I'm going to go with Drew Aller, who I do think has to take that big step forward. But it's not against just the common opponents and the average opponents. It's the same knock that comes with James Franklin. Why haven't you beaten the top 5 teams? Drew Aller hasn't played great against the top 5 teams, but he comes in as the quarterback of the team that is one of the favorites to be the Big Ten champion and the national champion. So that by default puts him in the conversation. I think he'll put up big numbers once again, but the difference is going to be, if he wins it or not, is going to be how does he perform against the Ohio States? How does he perform on those biggest stages? And he's got to take that step forward. Minorly concerned that the running backs could become a story with them coming back, but there are 2. So it's not like you have a Saquon Barkley out there who's carrying the load. It's Singleton and Allen. The receivers, we don't even know who they're going to be yet, who's going to step up. That's been a major storyline, but I think they're much improved from last year. So I think Drew Aller, statistically, I think he'll be in the conversation, but he's got to play bigger on the bigger stages in order for him to take this thing home.
Yeah, when Drew Aller was on the Cover 3 podcast, we asked him about the receivers, and he gave us a CVS receipt of the entire depth chart, breaking down basically everybody who he's excited to throw to. So he's excited about it. Drew Aller, great selection there, rounding it out. Okay, let's recap rounds 1 and 2 of the Heisman Trophy draft. Danny selecting Cade Klubnik, number 1 overall from Clemson, circling back and adding Drew Aller to his squad. Bud gets Arch Manning at number 2 overall, DJ Lagway, and I was at the turn picking up Garrett Nussmeier from LSU, and the first non-quarterback taken, wide receiver Jeremiah Smith from the Ohio State University. Well, 2 rounds down and 2 rounds to go. Coming up on the other side, more of our Heisman Trophy winner draft here on the Cover 3 podcast and more next. Live on CBS Sports Network, rolling along through our Heisman Trophy winner draft, trying to select the winner of the Heisman Trophy for the 2025 season. We've got 2 rounds in the book. We've got 2 rounds left to go. Danny Kanell, you are on the clock for round 3, selection number 1. Where are you going?
All right, so I'm going a little bit, now we're starting to get to some of those plays where I think there's a little bit better value. Most of them are household names, especially this is a Cover 3 pod. But I feel like there's somebody in the Big 12 that I needed to select. And I'm going with Sam Leavitt, who obviously was the quarterback of Arizona State last year. He comes back. And there are some concern. We've talked about them. What do they look like without Cam Scatterbo, the running back who was such an emotional leader of that team? But I think Sam Levitt has another level up to get to. And I talked to one of their coaches that was there last year with them and said he was so impressed with his work ethic, his leadership, the intangibles, that I think he does really solidify himself. Remember, wasn't really the entrenched starter. There was a little bit of a quarterback battle early in the season, but man, he has taken this job and ran with it through the majority of last season. I think he does take that next level, and he played well in the Big 12 championship game and the playoff game without his favorite target, and Jordan Tyson, who was hurt, who does come back. I think the running back field is going to be just as good, look a little bit different, which actually helps him because there won't be a Cam Scatterbo to potentially take votes for him. The Big 12 is wide open. You want moments. Even if they're 10-2 or 11-1, you're going to get some close games. It's almost guaranteed, which means you get a lot of highlight Heisman moments. I like Sam Levitt for Arizona State. I think there's pretty good value met here too.
Yeah, Levitt's got some moxie, kind of electric playmaker type mentality to him. I like that a lot. All right, Bud, where would you like to go for your selection, number 2 of the third round?
I'm going to go to Tuscaloosa. Give me Ty Simpson, who hasn't officially won the job yet for Alabama. But if I get a Kalen DeBoer quarterback, his guys usually put up ridiculous numbers. And I get that quarterback and I say, hey, is this Bama team going to be favored in 11 games? Are they going to be on national TV a lot? Do they have a great receiving core? Yes. Is the offensive line probably well improved over what it was last year? Again, I think yes. There's probably a reason that Bama paid Ty Simpson to stick around. They probably believe in the guy. And then down the stretch, when people are watching, when they got to make their decision, you get an LSU team. Maybe LSU's still in for the playoff race. Maybe they've quit by then, right? Get an Oklahoma team. Like if things don't go well early for OU, that's a major quit factor, quit watch type team whose coach is probably fired. Eastern Illinois, pad the stats a little bit there. And then again at Auburn. Like these are big names who may not end up being all that good in several cases, who you could really light up. So if he actually wins this job, if he holds off the true freshman Russell, I think a lot is set up. And historically, Kalen DeBoer quarterbacks absolutely crush. So give me Ty Simpson here as a value pick in round 3.
You know, I like the way that Bud has game theoried this, isolating that back half schedule, some potential concerns. What about the beginning of the season, Danny? What about week 1? Yeah, what are you expecting out the gate? Like, not just week 1 against Florida State, but from Alabama's offense. How do you see Ty Simpson and this Crimson Tide offense looking in 2025?
Oh, I think it's going to look completely different than last year. I think there were limitations in the pass game with Jalen Milroe that you weren't able to see Kalen DeBoer come out and just open up the entire playbook. And I actually think it was probably a coaching masterpiece to have that team, produce as much offensively as they did with the quarterback that was really limited in some of the middle tier throws. The consistency just wasn't there. Also, the addition of Ryan Grubb to this offense. That's a pairing that has worked really well. And Kalen DeBoer's old offensive coordinator, who's now back in Tuscaloosa, I think that's a huge factor too. And as much as we talk about Jeremiah Smith, don't forget Ryan Williams and him were talked about as the super freshman from last year. He's a sophomore now. He's a sophomore now. So I think he's going to be just a weapon that he can utilize as well. And it's Bama. Like, they're going to be good. This roster is too good, full of talent for them just to fall off the face of the planet. The only question I have is does Ty Simpson, does he win the job? Because he's always been somebody that's looked really good in practice, but he wasn't able to win the job the last couple of years, even though he's had multiple opportunities to do so. Maybe it's a maturity thing. Maybe now he's finally got his opportunity, he can make the most of it. So one concern of mine is he just a practice player who doesn't play good when it's live bullets out there and everything's live. So if he does, I could absolutely see him taking this Alabama team to where they want to go. And if that's the case, he absolutely would be a Heisman candidate.
I like that. Okay, final pick of the third round. I'm going to keep it in the SEC. And I'm going to go to a player that I think doesn't need to be in the college football playoff because of the responsibility that he might carry for this team. He showed us some of his electric playmaking skills, some Superman tendencies. And of course, I'm talking about South Carolina quarterback LaNorris Sellers. As soon as the NFL draft was done and all of a sudden all the draft nicks started turning their attention, they said, wow, look at the way this guy moves in the pocket. Look at this guy's athleticism. I mean, put the team truly on his back to be able to go and win that game against Clemson at the end of the season. So when I look at LaNorris Sellers, I think that there's a chance for him to be individually spectacular, even if South Carolina, according to my expectations, might be taking a little bit of a step back. When Robert Griffin won the Heisman Trophy, Baylor was not contending for a national championship, but he was so individually excellent around him, that kind of star power that allowed him to get the attention of all the Heisman voters. If we do see maybe some of these national title contenders have quarterbacks that are maybe just going through the meat grinder, I could see that Lenoris Sellers, with some of that individual excellence and playmaking, could be a Heisman Trophy winner even on an 8-4 type team. Any thought there on Sellers?
Well, I think they'll probably have to throw the ball around a little bit more this year because they do lose so much on defense. South Carolina profiles as a team, they're going to play more shootouts. He's going to have to chuck the ball around a lot more than he did last year. Running back is a major question for the Gamecocks too. I mean, receivers a question as well, but we know this offense is going to run through Lenoris Sellers. If they are like seriously in playoff contention, there's no mystery. He's clearly like the reason why they would be. So, Chip, I think that pick makes sense.
I mean, especially around 3, right? I mean, we're talking about you're starting to work away a little bit deeper down the board. And let's go and kick off round 4 with a flyer that maybe wouldn't have been a flyer. I mean, this guy was almost a chalk donkey, the opposite of a dark horse, because everyone said last year the dark horse was going to be Avery Johnson, the quarterback from Kansas State. We had seen him a little bit as a nice blonde-haired freshman, but they said goodbye to Will Howard to be able to clear the path for Avery Johnson to come in. And Avery Johnson had an up-and-down season. Kansas State had an up-and-down season. I think both quarterback and team fell well short of their expectations going into the year. So maybe we weren't wrong. Maybe we were just a year too early. Danny, can you get on board with me kicking off our final round with a little bit of a flyer on Kansas State's quarterback?
There are a couple names on here that when you guys are picking, I'm like waiting to see if he drops to my lap. Avery Johnson was absolutely one. I was thought maybe he'd drop another pick or two and I could have swiped him up because I totally get what you're saying. Chris Kleiman is a really good football coach. Matt Wells taking over the offense, I think, is really going to help him as a quarterback. And if you take away a couple bad games last year, it's not that dissimilar to Garrett Nussmeier that cost him a couple games, the interceptions, the poor play. But if you eliminate those couple games, he's having a phenomenal year. And it was sort of a normal first-year starter type of year, but the expectations were so high because they did send Will Howard packing. But if he can straighten that out, get more consistent, I absolutely think Avery Johnson is a really solid pick right here. You might even hear this team as a potential Big 12 winner whenever we do conference winners. I think they're that good. I think they have that much talent around them, and I think that is a perfect spot for him to be taken in this draft.
All right, 4th round, pick number 2. That is to you, Bud. Where are you going to go with your final pick here in our 4-round Heisman draft?
I'm going to Ole Miss, Oxford, Mississippi. Austin Simmons, quarterback. We talked yesterday on Cover 3 about how Ole Miss just lost their starting tight end for the year. We know they probably wanted to run the ball a little bit more this year, replacing Jackson Dart, but Austin Simmons can sling it. They got 4 receivers they really like, and if you lose your starting tight end, guess what? You probably got to open it up a little more, play a little more 4 wide. Ole Miss has some of the best odds to make the playoffs in the country. If they do make that, if they do meet those expectations, Austin Simmons will have ridiculous stats in Lane Kiffin's offense. I could see him taking home the whole thing.
I like this. I mean, Austin Simmons could have been in Major League Baseball. Chose to be able to be there for Ole Miss. The athleticism's got to be there. Looking forward to seeing it. All right, Danny, we're not going to call it Mr. Irrelevant. It's only a four-round draft with 3 guys.
Right.
You're the 12th best candidate. You are still extremely relevant, but it is still the last one that we're keeping track of. So who is round number 4, pick number 3 for this Heisman Trophy winner draft?
All right, so that I really wanted Austin Simmons, by the way. He was one I thought would drop to me. And at some point, you start looking at Lane Kiffin's quarterbacks and just kind of trusting the process. They're going to put up big numbers, and they're going to be pretty solid. But he's off the board. I'm going with Dante Moore out at Oregon. This is the team that is the defending Big Ten champion in Oregon, and yet we've completely forgotten about, written them all off because of what happened at the Rose Bowl against Ohio State, and it was ugly. And this is the first time that you've had Dan Lanning have a quarterback without much experience, but he has played before, right? His true freshman year at UCLA, he did get some action, so he's gotten his feet wet against Power 4 teams, and it wasn't pretty, but he also got to sit back and learn and watch from Dylan Gabriel, which I think is a huge asset for him. I do think the talent is there around him where if he makes good decisions in Will Stein's system, he could be that player that puts Oregon right back where they've been the last few years, is right back in the Big Ten championship hunt, in the playoff hunt, and it's a quarterback-driven system. So I think Dante Moore is great value here as long as he steps up, kind of reaches some of the potential that we've seen of him throughout his early career.
Yeah, Dante Moore flying a little bit below the radar, but Oregon very much going into the season looking to defend their conference title. Okay, let's recap rounds 3 and 4 of the Heisman Trophy winner draft. Danny got things started in round 3 with Sam Leavitt, followed that up with Dante Moore. Bud picking up Ty Simpson in the 3rd round, adding Austin Simmons in the 4th. Then at the turn, I got Lenora Sellers from South Carolina and Avery Johnson from Kansas State. Well, coming up on the other side, 12 just ain't enough. We reveal some of our names that just missed the cut and other deep sleepers and long shots to watch in the Heisman Trophy conversation and more next. Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. Well, that's it. All 4 rounds in the books for the 2025 Heisman Trophy winner draft. Let's take a look at the results. Of course, things got started with Danny Kanell taking Cade Klubnik at number 1, followed by Bud getting Arch at 2. I got Garrett Nussmeier at 3, followed up with Jeremiah Smith at 4, followed with Bud getting DJ Lagway, Drew Aller. Danny adds Sam Leavitt and Dante Moore in rounds 3 and 4. Bud rounds out his squad with Ty Simpson and Austin Simmons. And then I've got Lenora Sellers and Avery Johnson. Danny, we're looking at all 3 of our squads side by side. What do you like either about your squad or either Bud or mine?
So I think I went pretty safe, especially with my top 2 picks, but I do, and Bud made a great comment. He's like, I don't want guys to get to New York. I want guys that can actually win the trophy. I think Cade Klubnik and Drew Aller are the safest bets to get to New York. How they play over the course of the season, how they play on those big stages will determine whether they win it or not. But I want guys that are actually going to have a chance in New York. Whether they win it or not remains to be seen. But I think we all have really solid picks. The thing that jumped out to me were some of the names that aren't on our list.
Yeah, Danny, completely agree with you. There are some big-time names on the list. Like, quickly on my team, I went all SEC, all quarterbacks. I do think the SEC will have the Heisman winner this year. I wanted guys that have crazy high upside, or in the case of Simmons, if a team makes a first-time run to the playoffs, I wanted him to be the reason why they did. And I think, obviously, if Ole Miss makes the playoffs, Simmons would be that guy.
Apparently, I'm very forgiving. Apparently, I'm really into second chances. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier, Avery Johnson. I mean, I'm out here just being able to say, you know what? I think you can get better. I believe in you. So, yeah, maybe I am just a little bit early or a little bit on time for those names that were early. Yeah, Danny.
That's what happened with Joe Burrow. We mentioned him kind of flying under the radar. Remember, he was a starter who struggled a little bit, and then he took a big step forward. That's what you're betting on, which I think is a very smart play.
Yep. What about names that just barely made the list? What about you, Bud? What you got?
I was thinking in the same vein as Simmons, Raiola from Nebraska, right? I think Nebraska's defense probably takes a mild to moderate step back. If they are going to make a run at the playoffs, it's going to be because Dylan lights it up with the new OC and new receivers there at Nebraska. So he kind of fits my Simmons model there. He was one of like the 4 names that I thought probably were going to get picked and just didn't.
Agreed. I think he could, and especially now that he's got a little bit more comfort with Dana Holgorsen. When we sat down and talked with him in Las Vegas at Big Ten Media Days, he was saying how, Dana Holgersen's kind of, learning the playbook pretty quick, and he's kind of learning by a fire hose now that he's got an entire offseason to work with him. Plus, it's Nebraska. Like, if you bring Nebraska back on the national stage, even if you're, 9 wins, potentially 10 wins at the end of the year, that would be a huge asset in your favor. I mentioned one of the names that are not on here. None of us picked Carson Beck. He was one that I didn't want, but I thought for sure one of you guys would take him. He's 5th in the Heisman odds. We all passed on him, and I think that's one we potentially missed. But he does have, are you really going to go back-to-back with quarterbacks after Cam Ward wins it last year? Like, the expectation there is so high. But if it's Clemson and then it's Miami as the second best team and they're playing an ACC championship game, that you would have to assume that Carson Beck would be having a big year. So I thought he was one. I didn't want him, but I was surprised neither one of you guys scooped him up.
Yeah, I blame his former romantic interests for speaking ill about him in these streets and clouding my vision. When the football starts, I might come around, but he's a do not buy right now. How about Julian Sayin? I got Jeremiah Smith on my squad. It could be Julian Sayin. Carnell Tate could have a big year too. The rest of those weapons could have a big year. Julian Sayin as the guy who's throwing it around. All could be something that really draws a lot of the attention and draws some of the votes away from Smith. Julian Sayin, probably another name that's worth mentioning here in that. Well, coming up on the other side, here on Tuesdays, we're going to try to leave you until we get started with the season with a win total of the week. So we'll send you on your way with a win total that we like, and we'll tell you why next.